everybody, settle in because I got a great video for you here. It's a great discussion with John Kohler. Let's make sure I got the names right. Paul Nison, who I believe is on the middle. John Kohler says your greens there on the far right. And then Kaelash Neels, who are each been raw vegan for at least 30 years, apparently. Okay. Now, what's raw vegan? It means you don't cook anything or heat anything above 116 degrees, which is where enzymes get destroyed. So it's actual whole plants that are kept below those temperatures. So you can do a lot of fancy looking things, dehydrating and stuff. And I am Mike, 55 years young. Welcome. We're all about health span and longevity here at aPlantBasedDiet.org, and ideally the state of health optimization. So that's how this all ties in. Because do you need to eat fully 100% raw to achieve health optimization? Well, we think no, at least at this point in time. And this is going to be a super deep dive where you're going to learn everything you need to know about this in the shortest period of time from these guys with like 90 plus years of experience. So we define health optimization as a fully balanced state of health that is indicated or verified by a lack of non-communicable disease. In other words, you don't have any kind of diseases, anything that's your fault due to your lifestyle. So let's get right into it. They're going to talk about high fruit diets. And, I know plenty of people that are fruitarian or want to be fruitarian. And here we go.
Start on that side and then come this way is high fruit. Is eating a high fruit diet good or bad, or whatever your thoughts are on high fruit? Kaelash.
Well, I used to be on a high fruit diet. When I started, lots and lots of fruits and nuts also, not a lot of greens, not a lot of vegetables.
Okay, so that's when he started. You may know Denise and I eat about 4 pineapples every single day, fully ripe, yellow, fresh cut pineapples. So we eat a lot of fruit. Every breakfast is that. And we eat other fruit during the day too. So we definitely eat large amounts of fruit, but we don't eat all fruit. And if you want to know what fruitarian is, it's fruitarian, depends on who you talk to. It's kind of like raw vegan. Well, are you talking about 100% fruitarian or 100% raw vegan or somewhere below that? But fruitarian is the idea of exclusive fruit. Raw vegan is the idea of exclusive foods below 116 degrees at all times.
And it worked for a while, I'd say. I felt pretty good. But I noticed my energy would dip, and I didn't draw the connection. I didn't know much. I didn't really have all the knowledge I have today. And then over the years, especially when I came across the teachings of Ann Wigmore, it really clicked, and I really understood how important it is to eat more greens, more vegetables, which I still do. And
okay, now let me also mention, first of all, fruitarian, if you're not familiar, and I will link a video down below. It can be considered and is considered an ethical diet by many people. Our neighbor Nico over there at Terra Frutis, hey to Nico, if you're watching this, he released a video that's called The 7 Stages of Ethical Eating, and it talks about fruitarianism and why you want to do that. And, people such as Nico, he can't even say for 100% sure, and he acknowledges that, neither can we, if exclusive fruit is the best way to go. But just saying exclusive fruit is not the whole picture, because it could be the types of fruit you're eating, how you're eating it. There's so many varieties of fruits. So I don't think they get into the nuances of this, but that video down below does a little bit more. So that's why it's down there. But let's keep going.
Also blended salads, I do that a lot. So I still love my fruit. I just ate 3 mangoes there and some
All right, mangoes, they're in South Florida, I think, during mango season. They're recording this late July. And by the way, Denise and I are going to be at the Vegan Wellness Retreat, if you're watching this ahead of time, in less than a week. So this is super relevant to what we're doing there. Also, I want to mention that you might say, hey, Mike, well, how can you say you don't need to eat fully raw or almost exclusive raw to achieve the state of health optimization? Well, that's because we have a nutrition standard that we developed through our nonprofit. It's called Healthy Vegan Food. You can learn more at healthyveganfood.info. Healthyveganfood.info. 6 pillars of healthy vegan food, because even if you're eating fruitarian, even if you're eating 100% raw, and it's harder with fruitarian, but still there's a lot of fatty fruits. You may not follow our guidelines, and you may develop non-communicable disease because you don't. So don't just think, oh, just raw is it. You're either raw or you're not. It's not like that. That's why we say you need to follow the 6 pillars of healthy vegan food. This is going to ensure that you don't develop non-communicable disease, whether you're eating cooked food, raw food, or 100% fruitarian. And the other thing is, all cooked food is not equal. When people, especially in this video, relate to cooked food and say, oh, cooked food this, cooked food that. Well, so much that's wrong with cooked food has to do with the way it's cooked. All right. And that is rarely, if ever, discussed by anybody. And I'll try to point some of these things out as this video goes along.
White sapotis, I'm not anti-fruit. I love fruits. I eat fruits, I'd say, every single day in my smoothies, and often, typically, an afternoon snack, often mangoes.
All right, he mentioned smoothies. A lot of people like me put frozen fruit in smoothies. I don't know if they're going to get into that in this video, but that's another facet here of raw eating, is whether frozen fruits or frozen anything still has the life force left in it. Because we said, like, the definition is where the enzymes get destroyed above 116 degrees Fahrenheit. But what about freezing? Does that ruin the life force? We'll see if that's in this video.
But I also eat my vegetables for lunch, and dinner I have vegetables. So I balance them, and that's really what works for me, and also what I've seen works for many people. Although I know some people do better with less fruit than other people, and I think it has to do with how active you are and also where you...
Okay, now I will agree that everyone is different, and it's awesome that everyone's different. All right. I think everyone still gets affected by the bad stuff. That's why we have the 6 pillars of healthy vegan food, which, by the way, is not whole food plant-based. Whole food plant-based has no universal definition. They may refer to that here because I think, and I'm going to have the link to this video down below too. In the description of their video, they talk about whole food plant-based people. That is not necessarily about health, unfortunately, because there's no guidelines. There's no standards. Our standards bring you as close to nature as possible, and we think that that is incredibly important.
You are at what stage you're in your life. So high fruit, I don't think that's too great for most people. I'd say just balance the balanced amount.
Okay, so he's saying high fruit's not good for most people. I'm sure he's against fruitarianism. I don't know why. I don't know if they'll talk about this, but balance. Yes, balance is always the key. You don't want to be deficient in any nutrients when you're eating as well. You need to eat fruits. If you're eating only fruits, I'd say you have to eat them from really good soil. You have to know the quality. You probably have to grow them yourself, because a lot of the stuff in the store is all designed about looks. A lot of it's not even ripe. I don't know if they're going to get into this, but I have an excerpt about that. Actually, I want to put it into a video, and once I do, I'll have it down below about how to pick out ripe fruit, because only fully ripe fruit is meant for humans to eat. Unripe fruit is not meant for human consumption, and I don't know if they'll address that here in this video.
The fruit, which varies from person to person.
All right, Paul.
Well, I think the volume of what we're eating is important. So I'm against overeating, no matter what it is. And
actually, calorie restriction is the only apparent thing that's ever been proven to extend lifespan in humans. Interesting fact.
But getting a majority of your calories from fruit, I don't have an issue with if somebody's not overeating. But if somebody's overeating, then it becomes an issue. I think somebody should definitely have greens in a diet. I don't believe in eating only fruit. But if you're not overeating and you're eating some fruit, I don't see an issue with it. So if you're getting most of your if you're all raw, you got to get most of your calories from fruit, because where else are you going to get them from if you're all raw?
I mean, it's more extremely difficult to get your calories from sprouted grains, sprouted beans, greens. Like, for a while I was juicing a lot of greens to get more calories from greens and other root vegetables, for example.
Chances are, if you're all raw, 100%, which I am.
By the way, if you're not familiar with raw, he talks about sprouted beans. That's how you would eat beans. If you're trying to be or are 100% raw vegan, you can't cook them, so you sprout them.
And them two are not. If you are 100% raw, you got to get your calories. The majority of them are going to come from greens, even if you.
Well, your majority of your calories are coming from fruit.
From fruit. But I'm an advocate of a low-calorie diet to begin with.
So that's interesting. I guess if you are 100% raw, like I said, I'm not. You're going to get the majority of your calories every day from fruit. Interesting, because that's most of the raw stuff we eat besides salads is fruit.
So I don't think we should eat an extreme amount of calories. I don't think we need an extreme amount of calories. So yeah, and the majority of it would come from fruit, I would think. So you could get your majority of your calories from fat, nuts, and avocados, which I don't recommend.
Yeah, okay. We agree one of the pillars of healthy vegan food is zero oil. And we clarify that also to say that you should not ever have more than 10% calories from fat in any dish or anything that you're eating, any kind of prepared foods. And of course, if you're eating these high fat raw foods that he just mentioned, you're going to be way over that. And that is a severe problem.
I'd rather see somebody get the calories from fruit instead of from fats and
Yes.
avocados as the majority, and nuts and
Agreed.
seeds as the majority of their calories.
All right, Paul. So my thoughts on fruit is that, like Paul, I would agree, we don't want to overeat fruit. And the question is, what is overeating fruit? And like Kaelash said, you know, overeating fruit for you is different than overeating fruit for me. As Kaelash said also, depending on your life stage, where you are in life, when I was younger, I ate much higher fruit and was able to deal with it really well. Nowadays, as I'm getting a little more mature, I find that fruit does not do with me as well. I love fruit. I'm not against fruit. I ate like mono-meal and mango with fruit with Paul and Kaelash the other day. Actually, most of this trip, I've been eating fruit, and I actually haven't been eating vegetables because I'm in South Florida. And South Florida during mango season, you don't eat anything else besides mangoes, in my opinion, because you're so full on mangoes, and I'm going back home tomorrow. I mean, maybe if you live here, then you're a little bit different. But, you know, I'm like going to pig out on these amazing mangoes while I'm in town, and then I'm getting back to my normal stable diet where I'm eating plenty of vegetables as well as other heat processed foods. I mean, I think that's another distinction I want to make is that I eat more heat processed foods than, you know, Paul, who's all raw, and Kaelash, who eats very
He mentions the word heat.
minimum.
Heat processed. So he's got to keep it under what 116, something like that. So that's a dehydrator. Usually
Amounts of heat processed foods, if any, depending on the day. There will be some days when, well, we're not going to answer for Kaelash. We'll let him talk about it. So I think that is very important to not overeat fruit, and that you need to find the appropriate balance for fruit for you.
All right, let me know in the comments, overeating fruit, okay? What does it mean? Yeah, what's the balance? Of course, you don't want to do anything that's going to mess you up long term. But a lot of this, you know, most people don't ever eat that much fruit, or it's considered a dessert at best when you're being raised. I think all these guys as adults decided to go 100% raw. They were not raised like that. So what's optimal? I don't know. I'd love to hear from your experience in the comments.
I think maybe buying a CGM or continuous glucose monitor to check to see if it's too much fruit for you. Also see if you are having some issues with eating fruit, like if you're getting...
Okay. I have not monitored myself with the glucose monitor. I don't really see that as an issue personally, unless you are eating or drinking juices or lots of things with fiber removed. There's no restrictions on removing fiber, apparently, in a raw vegan diet. That's why our 6 pillars of healthy vegan food, one of the standards has to be that it has to have whole plant fiber, because that fiber slows down the absorption. It turns something that would normally be a high glycemic item, where you would have to monitor your glucose, into a moderate to low glycemic thing, which is whole fruit.
Getting headaches for some unknown reason. You know, I was getting headaches because I was eating too much fruit. It's an indicator that my body was not handling the fruit sugar for whatever reason. Another indicator for me was I was getting more cross-linking. My skin was getting wrinkled because of too much fruit, and my body was not able to handle the excess fruit sugar. All right. Also, another sign for me of too much fruit.
Okay, he said excess fruit sugar. If you're eating the full and whole plant fiber, that will balance. They mentioned the concept of balance, which we agree with. It will balance out that natural occurring sugar, which is different than refined sugar, totally different, because we don't allow refined sugars in the standard. But it's got to have that whole plant fiber. I haven't heard them stipulate yet. We'll see how this goes.
Was my triglycerides were going high. Now, Paul will say, well, I'm not going to answer for what Paul would say, because what that's phrase, Paul's going to say, you're eating too much fat, John. So, but nonetheless, you know, once again, we all have our...
Yeah, so you see the recipe for disaster as a raw vegan. It's a high fat, it's eating a lot of high fat items, which can be natural or can be oil, combined with a lot of fiber extracted items such as juice. That type of, and then you can always add salt too. I see lots of raw vegans adding salt, although I'm not sure what these guys would think about that. Added salt. But if you go to raw vegan restaurants, everything seems like it has added salt in it, all the different prepared foods and dishes.
Unique differences, and I think we would all agree that overeating fruit is not good. Is that correct?
I think so.
Overeating on anything is not good.
Correct. All right.
Yeah.
Next up, because we are talking about cooked foods.
But also I wonder about overeating, because as long as, let's say, you eat the 6 pillars of healthy vegan food, again, healthyveganfood.info, check it out. I don't think you can overeat, because if you're eating all this mostly whole foods, minimally processed, low fat, with lots and all of the plant fiber and water in it, how are you going to overeat? I mean, you'll explode, I think, before you get to the point where you have overeaten when you're eating stuff like that. But that's been my experience anyway, because we tell people, as long as you're following as close to nature with the 6 pillars of healthy vegan food, you don't have to worry about portion control. These guys are obviously saying different.
Let's talk about cooked foods. So, I don't know, should I have a question like, is cooked foods good or bad? Or, what are your thoughts on cooked foods? We'll just start with that. Start with Kaelash.
How about you start?
All right, I'll start this time. All right, cooked foods, fine. So cooked foods, I think there are cooked foods that are poisonous and toxic and bad, and that is what most people out there in American society are eating. They're eating.
Yes, that's what I was saying. You rarely do you hear someone talk about it from this angle, so I'm glad to hear it.
Highly processed, highly cooked foods that do contain toxins that can significantly lower nutrition and that are not healthy for you, especially if they.
Okay, one of the things that he brings up here is toxins, and one of the things in our standard is that you eat the food that is organic and chemical free, which is better than organic as possible, as organic and chemical free as possible, always.
They add extra salt, fat, sugar.
There you go, salt.
Like oil. The way I heat processed foods, is with an Instant Pot where I'm boiling it or steaming it, so it's always being cooked in water. I only cook in the Instant Pot, so it's not a dry heat, it's a wet heat, and carcinogens such as acrylamide don't form under 248 degrees in wet heat conditions.
Okay, that's new to me. I'm going to investigate that a little. I've always heard just 350 is where they will form. I haven't heard about anything in the when the wet heat, so we got to look into that.
So that's how I process my food, and even though I eat heat processed food, I'm not going to tell you guys it's healthy. I eat about 20% or less of my calories in a day from heat processed food.
Okay, so as this guy, I guess, is not fully raw. He's not 100% raw. Like certain people who are raw would say, I don't know what they'd say, but I mean, I don't think anybody's perfect at anything, but at least he's admitting, it sounds like, that he's not 100% raw. He's high raw. I hear that term a lot, which could mean just about anything, but I'd say I'm high raw too. More than 50% generally of what I eat is going to be that more than 50% of my intake of calories will be raw.
Food, eating fruits, vegetables, other nuts and seeds, grains, legumes that can be sprouted and eaten, or I will also cook them, okay? So, and a lot of juices I eat for the greens, to concentrate the greens, getting me also eat, of course, salads, as well as fruits. So, I think that heat processed foods can have a place and can be healthy if you properly make them and are careful about doing it.
You go.
I will agree. I can see he already created some controversy right here with these two other guys. But I'm going to say, look, you have to keep it at least under 350. Prevent the formation of acrylamides, like he's saying. Super important. That's a carcinogen. That's a known carcinogen in humans. The other thing is, what kind of cookware are you using? Don't use any nonstick. Don't store it in plastics. Don't put your beverages in plastics. Don't put your juices in plastics. All kinds of microplastics, especially in cooked food, it heats it up. And then you're getting more microplastics. I think the leaching happens even more. And then the water. What about the water? Because so many things that you cook or require water, even raw foods, I guess you could, because I make almond milk. That's actually raw, not almond. Oat milk. The way I make mine is 100% raw. I used to make soy milk and that was cooked. But the water is the same. The water is a thing that I think most people aren't focusing on. You have to have pure water. You have to have uncontaminated water. You can't have, I'll say most of the water that's used almost everywhere is contaminated. That's a problem for cooked food.
After you.
All right, sure. Yeah, so there was an event in my life, actually two. One, I had a son who's 12, almost 13, and when he was maybe 3 or 4, he was raw the first few years of his life, and then once in a while he'd offer something to me that was steamed, that his mom made for him, and at the beginning I'm like, nah, but then I felt like I I felt he offered it to me, and it was within the realm of something that I knew would not harm me, and so I accepted it. And then the second was
Notice that he said not harm. And that's where we're coming at this from. We want to foster a balanced state there, the health optimization, the state of health optimization, and we don't want you to eat foods that are going to harm you. Now, he just said that there's some cooked foods that are not going to harm you. I think that's interesting.
There was a heavy hurricane in Puerto Rico, 2017, Maria, and there just wasn't anything fresh that I could buy anywhere, and most of the fruit trees were down and whatnot. There was just, I couldn't find any fresh food. So we found a chain of Sizzler, actually, where we would go once a day, eat all we could, eat as much as we could, and then went home again. Sizzler. That was the only place where we could find, actually they had some fresh stuff, and
they'll saute in oil over there, almost guaranteed, unless you somehow convince them otherwise. Add salt too.
I ate some also starchy, like potatoes and things like that, because they didn't have avocados. And honestly, I was super grateful just to have had any food at all that I could eat. And ever since, I just haven't been.
And actually, I wonder if these guys are going to talk about it. I doubt it. But fruitarianism sounds extreme, right? How about breatharianism? That's another one where you just breathe in your nutrients. Have you heard of that? Let me know in the comments. What do you think about that? Because I don't think these guys will ever mention it. But again, we're into this about health span and longevity. I think they are too, even though they're not using those words. This is an interesting, very interesting discussion.
This was in 2017, so 8 years ago, and I haven't been as strict. So before that, my identity was to be raw, and it was really important for me to be 100%. And then ever since, I have been more lenient and not been as strict. So
it sounds like at least two of these guys, I don't know about Phil in the middle, are high raw, I would say right away. They are not 100% raw. And actually, I've met some people in the past that have told me, and I just want to say it here because I think it's very appropriate, that nobody's 100% raw. Nobody's fully raw. If somebody tells you that, they're lying. That's what I've heard. So comments on that, please, below. What do you think?
Social settings, I would always say, a few days ago, we were visiting a friend and he offered something to us. And so we asked lots of questions. John or I, we wouldn't just eat anything that's heat processed or cooked. So we asked lots of questions. What ingredients?
Yeah, I do.
How was it prepared? Sure. And then we accepted it because it was within the realm of something, of food that we would eat. So
Okay. So it sounds like that's cooked food. I don't know. I mean, I wonder what their standards are. That's why we have the 6-pillar healthy vegan food standard. You need to have a standard.
I don't know how to cook, really. I have a pressure cooker.
Have you still used it yet?
I've used it a few times the last couple of weeks, actually, because I got these huge pumpkins from
my
John's
property. Yeah.
And what I'm going to do
You could eat those raw, though, Kaelash.
I probably could, but I didn't know what to do with them. And so I actually put them in the pressure cooker and for a minute, because mine doesn't have the zero.
Yeah.
And so I basically rarely, and like John said, I could go weeks or months still without eating anything cooked. So I'm not addicted. I don't think it's necessary for all of you.
Okay, but let me say something. He's not addicted. Okay, yeah, food addiction is a real thing. They brought up at the beginning of this video, I didn't play it, but it's there, each 30 years raw. Well, not 30 years fully raw, apparently. So I don't know how many years you could say. I mean, I guess it's 30 years high raw. That's how they should have said that in the beginning. So I kind of wish they did, because there's a lot, you don't want to make it sound like you're doing something that you're not doing. I think it's important to clarify.
You out there that think you absolutely need to, that we promote, and John might.
No, I'd agree. I don't think it's necessary for everybody. I think each person needs to find what's right for them.
Yeah, so that's my.
Also, I want to say something. I didn't hear from Phil yet. He still hasn't done anything. I want to say it clearly, so you understand where I'm coming from with this, that cooking is a form of processing. There are certain levels of processing that are okay, And, like cutting and blending those are forms of processing those whole foods. They're okay for the most part. Now, cooking, there's a lot of intricacies in there. That's why I'm going into high levels of detail. These guys are going into some detail, which is good as well, but they're not going into as much detail as we generally go into. And I think they're missing a lot of the important parts, like the water. I think it's extremely important.
My take.
Okay.
Well-
One question is, why do you always refer to cooked food as heat processed? Like nobody else used that term. Why do you use that term?
I came up with that term because cooked food has such a
Yeah, well, there you go. I agree with that, even though I'd never heard it before either, because cooking is a form of processing. So heat process is just another word for cooking, because cooking is processing, and I like it.
a bad rap in the raw foods movement as like cook food, because we all taught, cook food is poison at the end of the plagiarized book that everybody read back in the day. So everybody in the raw food movement is really drilled into them, like the dogma is cook food is bad, it's toxic, we should not eat it. So I want to differentiate the food that I eat, because every way we process food, whether it's blending, whether it's juicing, is a process.
Yeah, so juicing, yeah, that's another one. Yeah, for sure. That juicing is not okay for our 6-pillar healthy vegan food standard.
And so you could say, I would rather eat steamed kale than put it through a centrifugal ejection juicer and drink the oxygenated kale juice, or even.
Okay, and I want to also mention juicers, because shout out to Nico again there from Terra Fruitus at Fruitarian Utopia. The question has always been asked, I've seen it many times, to Nico. Nico, what is the best juicer? And his answer is always the same. It's the human digestive tract. The human digestive tract is the best juicer.
Even put it in a blender, in a Vitamix that oxygenates it. I'd rather steam it.
Well, and another thing I want to say about juicing while we're on the subject is from Dr. Doug Graham. I remember him saying that, well, people are like, well, why do people get better with juicing? If juicing's so bad for you, why do people get better? And his response is, because you can't juice burgers and Twinkies. In other words, you can't juice foods that are really bad for you. You can only juice things that have some benefit. Doesn't mean it's the best thing for you. And, in our view, it's not. The fiber is critical. The fiber affects your gut health. The fiber affects your mental health. Almost nobody gets enough fiber every day. Almost nobody.
Because I'm preserving more of the oxygen-sensitive nutrients.
So from a word standpoint, using different words, but do you see a difference between cooked food and steam processed food from just a practical standpoint? They are the same thing in your opinion?
Cooked food and steam processed food is highly different.
Yeah, those are different levels, different nuances of processing. Just like juicing is a form of processing, you're too far away. Once you get too far away from nature, that's what you got to keep in mind. We want all these little regulations, stipulations, guidelines, whatever you want to call them, nutritional standard. It's to get you as close as possibly aligned with nature. Once you get too far removed from nature, you start to develop this non-communicable disease. Now, we think it's not only the food. We also think you need to practice the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine as well. And by the way, we actually have events that we do. Go to healthoptimizationtravel.org. That's healthoptimizationtravel.org. If you want to go out of your house without harming yourself, that's the only events that we're aware of that practice both the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine and the 6 pillars of healthy vegan food together throughout the entire event to optimize your health, to allow your body to heal from what's been going wrong with it, which pretty much happens every time you leave your house, unfortunately.
That's what you call it, steam process?
Heat process. Okay. But if you said steam food.
Okay, heat processed and cooked food, technically, do you think they're the same thing?
Well, my definition of heat process is using a gentle heat to cook the food.
Is there a difference?
Okay, he's saying gentle heat. I didn't know he stipulated that. When I'm thinking heat process, the way those words are, I'm thinking anything where you're applying heat above 116 degrees Fahrenheit, like anything. And yeah, there could be different levels, but that's just what I think.
I mean, heat processed and cooked food. In your opinion,
it depends on the temperature.
Yes.
It does?
Yeah, because it's all about, it's the temperature, and if it's wet or dry.
What temperature, if you cook a food at, does it become
cooked?
Heat processed versus cooked.
So, I say heat processed. To me, heat processing means under 248 degrees in wet conditions.
Where'd you come up with 248 degrees?
That's when the toxins are formed.
I had heard 350. I'm going to have to get on my trusty LLM like ChatGPT or Grok and figure this out after I finish with this video.
Okay.
I have studies on this. I can put the links down below to the videos, guys.
You don't go according to the enzymes dying. What's the
That's
raw food
116
versus heat processed food number?
You want the temperature. So that's very.
Yeah, so he's talking about, John's talking about food that's above 116, so it's not considered raw, but below 246 or whatever he said. Like, like I said 350, but so something that's cooked in the range where it's still not intentionally harming your health, right? It is not health harming food, because we also make that stipulation a lot. People say, hey, Mike, let's go to this vegan event or this plant-based event. And I'm looking at them like, I gotta look at the details. I'm like, no, they only have health-harming food there. Once I look at the details, I can tell. And that's kind of the cutoff for me. Is it health-harming or not? Is it leading you towards a state of health optimization or pulling you away from it?
Variable, because there's some foods that the enzymes will, still live up to like 200 degrees. So like
the 248 they use, there's no variables. It's always across the board. 248 is when it starts.
Because at 248 is when the carcinogens are formed.
Is that a variable, or is that for certain foods at certain times?
It's interesting that these guys who are raw, like Phil, he has not yet said if he has been 100% raw for 30 plus years. I'd be curious as to his answer to that, if he's ever going to answer it here. Because a lot of people who are raw don't want to answer that question. Did you ever have a cheat meal in your entire time? Have you ever had regular cheat meals? I mean, we're okay with cheat meals, regardless of what you're eating, as long as you're at least 95% compliant, at least.
So, in general, I mean, you're going to see very little of antitoxins produced under 248 in a wet environment.
What about over? Is it automatically means everything is?
It depends if it's wet or dry, but I need to have a cutoff, and also I need to easy, because I live the majority of my adult life eating raw vegan, and I'm still not hooking up my stove.
Okay, he said now he's saying he lives the majority of his adult life as raw vegan. That's no better than what I said. I said at least 50% is what Denise and I do.
Cooked food and heat process to you are two different things.
Yes.
Okay. So my answer.
So he's saying heat process would be in that range of cooked food that is not health harming. That's interesting. I guess he invented his term like we invented our health optimization term and defined it. It's on our website, by the way. But we just want to say that if it's cooked or if it's raw, either one, make sure it's not health harming food. We don't want to recommend any health harming foods to anybody unless it's a cheat meal, which should hardly ever happen.
There is. I try to eat for myself as much as my diet, as processed, as little as possible.
Minimally processed.
Minimal processed as the best way to eat. Whole, raw food would be the ideal way to eat. And any time we process our food in any way, whether it's a dehydrator, or a blender, or a juicer, or cooking it, it's not ideal as eating it whole. So I try.
Yeah, you're pulling away from that natural balance.
Try to get the majority of my diet as close to whole foods as possible, or least processed as possible.
Nature, close to nature as possible.
But I've been able to go without cooking my food for the last.
And by the way, if you're wondering more about juice, you're like, Mike, what the hell are you talking about? Everybody who's raw juices. Well, would you ever find juice in nature? And in my opinion, the answer is no, because if that fruit smashes and turns to juice, it's going to run into the ground immediately. You're not going to be able to capture any of it.
Last 15 years, and prior to that, a couple of years where I included it, I went another, 13 or 14 years with no problem, no cravings or anything else. Practically wise, I think, you might disagree with me, but I think it's not practical from an emotional, psychological standpoint and a social standpoint for people to be disciplined enough to eat exclusively uncooked food. And I think...
Now, he's saying it's not practical, but what about from a health perspective? We're saying that it's not necessary in order to achieve that state of health optimization to be 100% raw. That's what we're saying. But you have to still be super careful. You have to be mindful.
people cave in, and that happens. And once you taste that cooked food, the cravings kick in, and it's hard to just.
Well, I think so. Yeah, there's an element of food addiction, but the other problem, the other end of that spectrum is your fruit and other raw foods, especially the fruit, fully ripe? If it's fully ripened fruit and grown correctly, you're not going to want anything else. It's just that most fruit is low quality. So that, yeah, it's going to drive you to something that's engineered for your taste buds to explode. But if you had a choice between engineered to your taste buds explode food and super high quality, grown right, fully ripe fruit, I would always choose the fully ripe fruit. But it has to be, it's hard. It's very hard. It's not convenient.
Completely not go back to eating it on a consistent basis. It creates a challenge for people, and so that's my opinion.
That's right.
For my personal case, I would disagree. For me, I'm very disciplined.
I could see he was kind of looking up at the sky and rolling his eyes a little bit. Very disciplined, but he's not 100% raw.
And for me,
Kaelash is the most disciplined guy I know, man.
Yeah, he used to call me the most disciplined raw food is.
Okay, so John over here on the right, Growing Your Greens, says that he's the most disciplined guy he knows. He is saying on the left that he's not 100% raw, but he doesn't agree with what Phil in the middle is saying about straying every so often, but he does because he's not 100% raw. I want to see where this is going to go.
I eat it occasionally, and actually, I had that fear that would happen. I thought like once I cross that line, and once I accept or eat something that's heat processed or cooked or whatever, in my case, so I was really concerned, be like opening the dam, and then now I'm gonna go for everything that I ever had, and all the cravings that were suppressed now I need to eat it in large quantities.
Again, that if you're eating high quality food as grown, ripe, Kaelash should not have to be concerned about that. If he's eating low quality, things that aren't that great, and kind of frankly boring and uninspiring to your taste buds, then yeah, I would be hyper concerned about that.
And I'm speaking just for myself. I do know that happens to people a lot. So I agree. I hear it all the time, but not for everybody. For me, I could easily go back to raw foods without needing discipline to go.
Do you think?
So it's interesting to hear these guys. It looks like a panel of experts, right? And they've all strayed, all. And I'd say they regularly stray. This is not a thing of the past. This is something that they do, and none of them are 100% raw.
Think cooked food in any way is in certain instances is more nutritious or healthier than raw food?
Healthier and more nutritious. I think it would depend on the person, what the person's needs are, and overall, maybe. My answer would be maybe.
From what you
Yeah, it depends on the kind of fruit. If you got low quality fruit, doesn't taste good. And if you are at a point in your journey, and by the way, see a doctor, see a board certified lifestyle medicine physician, board certified in lifestyle medicine. They understand all this stuff. Get your tests done, get your checkups, as long as you're not deficient. If you start getting deficient in some things, and it can be easier to satisfy those deficiencies by getting cooked food.
Said though, it sounds to me like you do it for more socially than anything
social
else.
Yeah, and also I'm kind of at this point really excited to eat most of what I grow, what I find on between John's and my land, where they're next to each other. And there's some things that I cannot eat raw, and so I'm like experimenting a little bit with those things, like certain leaves and stuff and pumpkin.
It says land. I got to find out where these guys are. If they're in Florida, we are definitely doing some work in Florida, and we have some projects going.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily bad if somebody includes a little cooked food in their diet. I think it's more practical, and I think there's only a few people.
I would agree with Phil. It's more practical. It's more convenient. There's nothing about optimizing your health that's convenient in this society, unfortunately. The way society is set up, the way the system is that we live in, that we were all born into and didn't ask to sign up for, that we're forced into is not convenient at all to optimize your health.
People in the world that are going to be able to eat 100% raw. It's not necessary to do so for good health.
Whoa, did you hear that? It's not necessary to eat 100% raw for good health. He said it right there. Oh, I was wondering how this video was going to go, because I'm like, okay, you got 90 years of raw vegan experience, but these guys are not exclusively raw. And he's saying it's optional, apparently. 100% raw vegan is optional to optimize your health. And right now, at least the state of our learning and understanding, I would agree with that, with the caveat that any food you eat that's not 100% raw has to meet our 6 pillars of healthy vegan food. And watch out for that water and the acrylamides. The cooked food has to be done properly so it's not health harming.
But, you know, we all have to choose. That's why I said in the social situations and other reasons we have to, you know, pick and choose what we do. But it's a fine line. Like you haven't let that happen. Maybe not people aren't as disciplined as you, but it's a fine line once people that haven't eaten cooked food a long time taste it. Things open up, and slowly but surely it goes from 1% to 2%.
Yeah, food addiction is a real thing. I would say that most foods, since they're engineered with the added salt, added refined sugars, and added oils, are engineered to your taste buds. They are denatured drugs. What most people are eating these days, I think it's Dr. Doug Lisle that said that many years ago, denatured drugs. And so, yeah, it's so much easier. It's so much easier. You feel, and in many ways, because society is so screwed up, the whole structure of society, you feel better when you're complying and doing what everyone else is doing, which is destroying their health. You feel more at ease. I know that's really bad to say, but that's just the truth. You have to go against the grain. You have to do what others are not doing. You have to be okay with it. And that can create a tremendous amount of stress in some people.
From once a week to twice a week, and the next thing you know, it's a fine line. So, you know, it's not good to go back and forth. If you're going to include a little cooked food in your diet, so be it. But if you go, I believe, you know, especially when you get into animal products, which I think is on your list.
Not on my list.
Okay.
Another carcinogen.
No, on your.
Well, we'll talk about.
Well, animal protein, according to Dr. T. Colin Campbell, is a cancer promoter, cancer causer in humans.
That later, yeah.
Right. When you establish a place, to go back and forth is not the ideal, but to have a diet with a little cooked food is not the worst thing somebody can do.
Not the worst.
Nobody would talk about it,
You
or
heard
we
what he
wouldn't
said
even
earlier.
think about it if it wasn't for the internet.
Yeah. So, I mean, I also want to give my comments on what Paul said and also comment on Kaelash. So, because I have two experiences, actually. So, when I went raw vegan in 1995, you know, I went straight 100% raw vegan because I learned in the books that said if you start eating cooked food, it's going to activate your immune system. And, you know, then I could.
So the books are saying if you eat cooked food, you are going to quickly kill yourself, it sounds like.
Get another reoccurrence was my belief. And, you know, I had some troubling times with an ex-girlfriend at the time, and I went out and got a vegan McDougal burrito at the local taco shop. And I'll tell you, when I had that vegan burrito, the next night, I wanted another one. Then
Anybody know what that is, vegan McDougal burrito? I mean, I know McDougal was pretty strict on certain things, but I wonder if it met the 6 pillars of healthy vegan food. And by the way, if you want to know what the 6 pillars of healthy vegan food are, there is 0 animal products, 0 alcohol, has to have whole plant fiber, and then the other things are 0 added salt, 0 added or refined sugars, but you can use maple syrup, molasses, and dates if you want, or any fruits. And then the other thing is no added oil, 0 added oil, but you also must keep the total calories at no more than 10%. So I wonder if that was compliant.
the next night, then like let's make some baked potatoes in the oven, right? Because I didn't know about like the temperature and all the crazy things I know about now. And then I had the potatoes, and then the next night I wanted potatoes again. So I know what Paul's talking about, that you can have cravings.
Yeah, well, potatoes, here's another thing. A lot of people say you're going to not get enough iodine if you don't eat added salt. There's salt in everything, sodium in all plants. All plants have sodium. But they add iodine. It's fortified. It's like taking a supplement when you get salt, because a lot of people have problems with their iodine levels. Again, go to a doctor that's board certified in lifestyle medicine, get your checkups. When you are low in something like that, what are the high sources? just go online and ask your LLM, what are the highest whole plant sources of iodine? And guess what? Potatoes is there. So he may have been low in iodine. That's all I'm saying. That could also be a factor here because your body always knows. Your body always wants you to do the right thing, regardless of your situation. Everyone's situation is unique and constantly in flux.
Right? And then like I have to stop eating the cooked potatoes that are from in the oven, right? That creates acrylamides that makes these compounds that make it addictive, right? And I also probably added like salt at the time, which I don't do now. And then I wanted more and more. And then I had to actually stop eating for like 3 days until that taste went away. And then I got back to 100% raw again, right? These days, I don't cook potatoes in the oven. I don't form those carcinogens that make it taste good, that make the food more addictive, right? I put purple potatoes, which are the least sweet potatoes you could buy. If you want sweet potatoes, you could buy like russet potatoes that have high sugar content that will increase your blood sugar, like fruit, if you want to get that reaction. Me, on the other hand, I buy purple potatoes. I was in Sonoma County, California. I found purple potatoes. I brought them back on the plane, bought them at the farmer's market in San Rafael, $8 a pound, so I could eat my purple potatoes. When you're like, John, you're crazy, you get 10 pounds of russets for like $1. No, I'm not buying the russets. I'm buying the purple potatoes because they're purple. They have low blood sugar, and they put your blood sugar the other direction, and I steam them. When I steam purple potatoes, they're not sweet, and honestly, I'd rather eat for flavor the lemon meringue or lemon zest mangoes that we had at Paul's because they taste 100 times better than these purple potatoes when I eat them plain. So if you ate purple...
Okay. He's got his reasoning, and it sounds like it makes sense for him. That's for sure. And he didn't mention about boiling. I thought he was going to say boiling instead, but steaming. I guess it's close to boiling. And he didn't mention iodine at all. But I think that's, if you ask me, that's a great whole plant source of iodine. If you happen to be low in it, is potatoes. But if you're raw, you just have to be super careful. And you can eat potatoes raw, okay? Don't get me wrong. Don't think, well, if you're saying potatoes, it has to be cooked. He already said he buys like the most nutritious potatoes, or he did, and then he didn't like the taste, but he ate them anyway. You can also eat them raw.
Potatoes plain, it's not like, I want another meal of purple potatoes. Now, if you cook them and bake them, put salt and oil on them, then you're going to want them again. The way I cook them is the most like austere way.
Okay. Salt, oil, and refined sugar, my shorthand for that is those are isolates. Just like anything's an isolate, like pharmaceuticals are chemical isolates. Supplements are organic isolates. And then you've got salt and you've got oil. Salt's an isolate of sodium. Oil's an isolate of fat. Refined sugars are isolates of salt, or sorry, of sugar. It's not the whole thing. It's not the balance. The water's gone, the fiber's gone, the other nutrition's gone. It pulls you away from nature.
To heat process their food, so it's not like I'm craving this stuff. Once again, this is my personal experience. I'm not saying it's going to be for you. I'm heat processing food in a much different way than like taking these purple potatoes and frying them into...
I'll say the same thing for me. I'm speaking from my personal experience, but I'll also say that I'm like the most hypersensitive person alive, okay? I'm like the canary in the coal mine. So things that affect me, they just affect me first. They will affect everyone else because we're all almost genetically identical.
Potato chips or frying them in oil and eating, French fries with them, and then you salt them, and then they definitely will be addictive, and it's because the oil and the salt and the cooking method.
No, I've tried John's beans and other cooked things. No offense, they're not addictive. They don't taste that great.
They don't taste good.
What I've made too, the pumpkin stuff, it's like.
Yeah.
It's like this is calories.
It's all right.
But the thing is, Paul asked, Kaelash a question: is there a benefit to cooked foods? And I could solidly look at you and tell you, yes, there is. Now, is that benefit greater than fruit or vegetables raw? It depends. Every benefit is...
It depends, yeah, and you have to, it's all part of a whole. It depends what else you're getting in your diet, what you may have too much of, what you may have too little of. So I'm glad that these guys are talking like this.
A little bit different, when you heat processed foods. Once again, I have links down below where I take out the published study science and why I would rather steam some foods and eat steamed foods instead of dehydrating foods, which would keep it raw because there are more nutrition as proven by science. In addition, when you are able to...
Yeah, dehydration is definitely a thing for people. The average person, I'd say, is likely dehydrated. That's another reason why juices may work for many people, because they're already dehydrated. Problem is, it's going to spike your blood sugar. That's a whole other topic.
With a cooked foods, like Kaelash was alluding to, on our properties, we have foods such as chaya and yucca that if you don't cook it, you're going to die because it has cyanogenic glycosides, right? We also have things like breadfruit that are very starchy. That would definitely, well, we have a video coming out that is not fun eating raw and is normally cooked, so then you can eat it. So you can make it edible. And then when you cook these starches, you get more.
Oh, by the way, there's also a couple of fruits you should not be eating for similar reasons that John is talking about. And I'm going to link that video down below. It'll be there. Make sure you watch it.
Complex starters that then feed your microbiome that, in my opinion, you should want to consider, because when you're eating a limited diet of limited different kinds of fruits and vegetables, you may not be feeding some of your microbiome. Of course, everybody's different. I encourage everybody to get a microbiome test.
Balance.
That is one of the things that pushed me to eat more heat processed foods and, you know, get some of these starches in me that I was not getting.
It pushed him to eat more heat processed food. Just keep that in mind, okay? Because there's so many people out there say it's either one extreme or the other. Either you're 100% raw vegan or you're not raw vegan. And obviously, these people are self-proclaimed experts, and of 90 plus years of raw veganism, and they are definitely advocates for some types of cooked foods.
Before, because I have an overgrowth, in my opinion, of bacteria that loves fruit, and that actually, in science, they hate potatoes. All right, guys, so yeah, big controversy on cooked foods. We're going to leave it up to you to determine what you believe. But the next thing I want to talk about is something that, I mean, hopefully we all agree upon, and this is the conundrum of what's more important. Because, I mean, we're all raw vegans. We strongly believe that diet is very important. But something that's even easier to do and free, that you don't have to even buy or even prepare in an Instant Pot or a stove or otherwise, is sleep. So now we're going to ask the question.
Oh, yeah. One of the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine is restorative sleep. Your body is regenerative, but you must enter the repair area, and it must not be like so far behind that it can't catch up. And that's how sleep works, and is absolutely necessary. I'm glad these guys are talking about it.
Question: what is more important, sleep or diet? All right, we can start at Kaelash again.
Well, we can't really live without sleep, and we cannot live without eating.
Unless you're breatharian.
So of course the.
By the way, I don't believe that. We'd have to monitor someone 24/7, continually, someone always watching, until I'm starting to believe that.
Question it's a bit difficult to answer. I remember one of the sleep experts, he said exercise and diet and positive thinking, all of these things, he sees as the columns, and then sleep is the foundation. And he also talks a lot about the hormones that are created and released if we get enough sleep and if we don't get enough sleep. So when we don't get enough sleep, we tend to crave the wrong foods, and also we tend to crave them at the wrong time, so at night. So
I have not experienced that myself, but what I have experienced is if I eat some vegan junk food for dinner the night before, when I wake up, man, I'm hungry. Like, never been hungry before with the vegan junk food. When I say junk food, I mean anything that doesn't meet the 6 pillars of healthy vegan food. So I didn't realize this was a factor, but maybe it is for some.
So our sleep affects our food choices to a great degree. The ghrelin hormone affects that we want to eat more and the wrong foods. And then leptin makes us feel more satisfied, and that's what's produced more when we had a good night's sleep.
Also, I wanted to make sure that you're aware that I agree that everyone's different with their sleep too. Like, take my wife Denise and I, she needs more sleep by like an hour or so every single day in order to get the same results that I get from sleep. She just requires a higher quantity, and it's going to be different depending upon your individual person.
So I'll leave it at this. Maybe I'll come back to the topic. Go ahead.
You have an answer?
So what is more important in the end?
What is more important in the end? They're both super important because, all right, so what we eat also affects our sleep hugely. So and when we eat it, and I know that's something else we could touch on here a little bit. And Paul, you're like the daylight diet. You wrote the book, and I know that's a huge topic, and I really admire you for that, because that's huge, and I share that with people a lot. How important it is to eat or not eat after sunset, to eat your meals at the right time of the day, so you digest the food better, which hugely affects your sleep. I've noticed it myself. I used to snack in the evening before going to sleep, like some oranges, and then I would wake up and not feel that great. And I know it affected my sleep, and also it affected how I felt in the morning upon awakening.
Interesting.
And then once I skipped those oranges before going to sleep, I slept way better. I woke up way more refreshed, and my mind was much clearer. So I know from first-hand experience and also teaching this to lots of people that both they affect one another. Is one more important than the other? I do know that most people don't get enough sleep, Americans and in other countries as well. Most people are sleep deprived, and they make up for it by using coffee and whatnot, different kinds of stimulants. And I also know that most people don't eat well. So
a lot of people say, or some people say, Dr. Gooby, who I watch, has said, someone tells him that when you drink caffeine, you're stealing tomorrow's energy to use today. Is kind of how, I think that's how he phrased it, which seems to be accurate to me.
So where do we start?
So Kaelash is going to still avoid the question. All right, Paul.
I'm in agreement with him.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
you can't put one over the other. I think they're both very neglected in today's world. I think if you eat,
it's one of the, I would also say, as both these guys are saying, that they're equally important. There's 6 pillars in lifestyle medicine. One is plant-based nutrition, which we clarify with the 6 pillars of healthy vegan food, and another is restorative sleep. Those are both equally important.
eat a great diet and you don't get enough sleep, you're going to end up with a disease. And if you eat a bad diet and you get good sleep or enough sleep, you're going to end up with a disease. So I think they're both equally as important, and both are the 2 most neglected things when it comes to health. I think when we discover or discuss a health program for ourselves, the ideal way to live from a diet in every way is to put ourselves in a situation where we get the required sleep we need every night so the body could do the job it was designed to do, and it's to heal itself. And our diet is tremendously helpful in giving us and putting us in a position to get the right amount of sleep.
Now I'm in a tight spot. Everybody else said they're both important. What am I going to say? I mean, yeah. So what? If I say sleep, then it's like, oh, John, I could just go out to McDonald's and then I get like 8 or 9 hours of sleep a day because the food puts me out or makes me pass out, or I drink alcohol, which makes me sleep, or cannabis, which makes me sleep, and then that's good. So, I mean, once again, sleep, like, I mean, I'm going to go what Kaelash said. Sleep is literally the
I would say those substances, cannabis, alcohol, whatever you're saying, they will initially put you into sleep, but the sleep that you have won't be restful. That's the problem with any substance like that.
foundation to your health. It is.
Oh, and of course, any kind of late caffeine that day completely disrupts your sleep that night.
It's critically important, but diet and exercise, stress management, and all these other things are also very important. That being said, with sleep, once again, like Paul wrote the book on daylight diet, so I'll thank Paul for doing that because that is also very important. While it's important to eat in the daylight hours, it's important to eat like minimally 2 to 3 hours, and then stop eating 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed. That's very critically important. Of course, also is making sure when you are sleeping is that you have a completely dark black room. And also, too, on the flip side is when you get up in the morning, you want to go outside and get bright sunlight in your eyes. They show that if you get bright sunlight in your eyes in the morning.
Of course, just like these guys are saying, how do you do it if you got like the night shift and stuff? I don't even know. I mean, I'm sure it negatively impacts your health, and it's not good. And they're not saying that here, but obviously that's going to be a massive problem for somebody that works during the night and sleeps during the day.
Then you're going to sleep better at night, of course. I'm also a big fan of like knocking out blue light, not being attached to screens, or put your screens on the blue light blocking mode or get blue light blocking glasses, because we want to mimic nature. And in the morning, there's more blue light, and as the sun goes down, it gets kind of more red light. So I actually have red lights in my room, and my neighbor who moved in next door, she's like, John, what's with the red lights in your bedroom? It looks really weird, and I had to explain the whole thing to her. But so yeah, they're both important. I don't want you to eat McDonald's and then just get all your sleep. And the last thing I want to mention is that there's a lot of raw foodists, including me. When I was younger, I'd eat a lot of raw food.
Interesting. They call themselves raw foodists. I hadn't thought about this before, but they're all eating some level of cooked food or what was it? Heat processed food, right? So, but they're still raw foodists. There's no cutoff for being a raw foodist. I guess you could be. I don't say I'm raw vegan. I say I eat mostly raw vegan. I don't eat animal products. That's I can say for sure, unless there's some terrible mistake sometime. But raw foodist, that's interesting. Let me know your thoughts.
And then I'd like sleep 6 hours and 5 hours, and I feel great when I wake up the next day. And like people will like misconstrue, and there's some people out there in raw vegan world that say, you know, if you're raw vegan, you don't need to sleep as much. And you know, I will say that in my prior years, I did not get enough sleep as a raw vegan, and that was not good. And I'll say, no matter if you're raw vegan or not, you still need to get the proper amount of sleep, which is how much, Kaelash? I think it's like 7 to 8 hours. But it still ranges, you know, so we're not going to put exact, but maybe 7.
Yeah, I'm on the lower end of that, just so you know. Denise, my wife, is probably right around there, but I am below that by like, you know, hour and a half less. I'm totally good.
7 to 8.5 hours. You don't want to sleep too much. You don't want to sleep too little. You know, everybody is a little bit different.
And sleep. Some people can get by with a lot less sleep. You know, some people do really well with just 5 hours of sleep a night, but most don't. And a lot of people sleep only 5 or some less hours every night. And
I mean, the way to know is do a sleep study. I mean, that's the real way to know. Well, you could go to a doctor and get a sleep study to see if you're fully healing and getting the different stages of sleep and rest you need and the appropriate amount of times.
Yeah.
Because somebody could just sleep 5 hours and say, oh, I got 5 hours, I'm good with 5, but is 5 really what your body needs, is the question. All right, the next topic is how important is it to be vegan? Want to start with Paul?
Yeah.
Sure. Vegan is a word that's often used incorrectly.
Yep.
Vegan is a lifestyle, not a diet. Not eating animals is part of a vegan lifestyle, but vegan means preserving and helping the life of all species.
I agree with what he's saying there. And with what Paul's saying, thing is, vegan doesn't mean healthy unless you're following the 6 pillars of healthy vegan food. That's why we used to do regular veg fests and other events, and we found that almost all the food there was health harming, almost all of it. Even though we tried to get at least a certain percentage that wasn't, we couldn't. People are just like Paul's saying, they're just more concerned, rightly so, about not hurting animals, and unfortunately in the process humans get hurt. Humans hurt themselves
Around us, and trying to avoid that on every level. And there are situations I think we're all in where we end up, if you drive a car, you're putting a life in jeopardy from the windshield wiper hitting a mosquito or something. So it depends to what degree you take it from that. And one other thing I ask a lot of people I interview is, how far do you take your vegan lifestyle? Like,
yeah, just so everyone knows, so I'm clear too with folks, all forms of transportation harm animals, every single one, including riding a bicycle or walking.
do you care about these things? Do you drive a car that has vegan chemicals in the tire, non-vegan chemicals in the tires, and all these different things? So
yeah, I just want to know, just so you all know, I've gone out of my way to make sure I don't have leather. I never liked leather. If I could avoid it, even special ordering a steering wheel or interior stuff when getting a car so that I don't have to have that, or of course, and inadvertently pay for someone else harming an animal to get that.
that's the vegan lifestyle. So from a diet standpoint, is that the question, or is it from a lifestyle standpoint?
It's a lifestyle question.
From a lifestyle
not a diet question.
Is I believe life produces life and death produces death. We get into situations. If I see a bug in my house that I can't catch and swoosh outside, he's probably going to die. If there's a fly trying to get in my food, he's probably going to get swatted. But I don't like to do that. I don't think it's good. I do my best not to do that. So I think vegan should be a goal for all of us, vegan lifestyle, to avoid taking a life on any degree, on any level, to avoid taking another life.
Or harming a life, I would say. And that's the thing about veganism. Just so you all know, not only did we define health optimization, right, which is a fully balanced state of health that is verified by an absence of non-communicable disease, we also defined, also on our page there at aPlantBasedDiet.org, our terms, is sustainable veganism. sustainable veganism is the only form of veganism that we practice. So these guys, I don't think are going to get into it, but this is what we had to kind of clarify to understand why we removed ourselves from these veg fests and other vegan events and festivals. The reason why is because sustainable veganism requires you to do everything you can to not harm your health as far as practicable and possible, which is the Watson definition of veganism. As far as practicable and possible, not harm your health as a vegan. That's not required for regular veganism, but for sustainable veganism, it is. And it needs to be. That's the only way that veganism is sustainable, because if you don't do that, then you are knowingly harming your health during the process. You won't be able to last long term.
And I think there's a godliness, there's a command, thou shalt not murder, and I think it comes back in a bad way. It does affect us on every level when we lean more towards the side of it doesn't matter what we're doing in terms of living a non-vegan lifestyle. So I think it's important to support life and not take life.
I agree.
All right, great, Paul. So I guess I'll go next. So, vegan for me and living like I guess the true definition of vegan is from the British Vegan Society. It's like to basically exclude the harm of other animals as much as practicable and possible, something like that. And the keywords in there are like practical and possible, right? So you could claim yourself vegan and you're doing as much as you can. So, like Paul, if bugs are on my food or I'm getting bitten by mosquitoes, man, I'm going to swat them and there'll be a blood splatter on me. Do I go out of my way to kill the mosquito over there? No. Like, they're doing their own thing. You're not going to bother me. I mean, if I get bugs on my food, right? Either they're going to eat my food or I'm going to eat my food. I do it.
You're going to eat them.
And I'm going to eat them accidentally because I don't mean to eat them. But I mean, I do my best to wash off aphids, but I have ingested aphids before live. So you're going to call me not vegan anymore. It's not I'm not like trying to eat aphids. They happen to be on my food.
There's no perfect. Like he's saying, the Watson definition is as far as practicable and possible. And that changes over time. You can get better over time as new methods and techniques and society changes, which I think that's the future. Society will change like that. And that's true with raw veganism too. I say maybe go do it as far as practicable and possible. You don't need to be 100% raw to achieve that state of health optimization. That's what I'm getting at with that.
Giving them a good life, they're reproducing. Sometimes I'll cut out plants and then put in the compost and then I don't know what happens to them, right? But my goal is to do as minimal harm on the planet as possible. If I see worms that I'm at a worm farm and it falls out, I see some farmers at worm farms like step on those worms and I'll stop, pick up the worm and put it back in to the worm bin so it can continue to live, right? If I'm digging a hole in my garden and I see worms, I'll pick them up carefully and try to put them back, right? So like I don't believe that we need to eat animals. I think that, the fur trade and buying fur and things is terrible and that we should, go out of our way to not support companies that do these things, and we should live, and leave the least footprint, right? And do the least harm to our
and karma, that's what it comes down to, right? If you're knowingly doing this, and you are nowadays, you just need to stop. That's what you need to do.
Planet, as well as other creatures on the planet, and I do the best that I can. I consider myself vegan, although hardcore vegans, because I tried milk, I don't know, 20 years ago. I was at like Jeremy Saffron's farm, and he's like, "Here, John, try some milk and try some of my cheese that I made from his goats that he loves." I tried it. Okay, I'm not vegan, but here's the thing, like, it's not like I don't eat like dairy, I don't eat meat or anything. And I would say that if you guys want to eat meat, we want to eat not processed foods, and I would say raise your own animals and kill them. I think that most people would not be able to do that. A true vegan probably would not even encourage people to kill their own animals if they want to eat them. But I think that most people would not be able to raise their animals and then slit their throats and eat them because they would form a connection with them. And I think that's the real problem, the disconnection with other creatures on the planet and having a human-centric attitude. So everybody should watch the movie called Earthlings. That will maybe give you a little bit of perspective on this topic.
I agree with everything that's been said already, and I was born vegetarian. My parents were and still are vegetarians. They were vegetarians before I was born. And I remember the other kids that would...
Yeah, and that's actually a really great thing, because with his age, I'm guessing they're 50s, 60s, because I'm 55. Gosh, I didn't even know what veganism was, or really even vegetarian. And I certainly wasn't raised by any vegetarians. But nowadays, I'm seeing people that are really raising kids in this health area of healthy vegan food, like we're talking about. Maybe not 100%. Also raw, maybe not 100%. Also vegetarianism, maybe not 100%. But I'm seeing it. I'm actually seeing it, and that is awesome. Because, like I said, this is the future. I'm also seeing, by the way, to kind of pick up on the veganism aspect that's already been discussed. So many cars are available now, and trucks, new from the factory, with either faux leather or just non-leather at all interiors, like not even available, on higher end cars. And so this is a trend. I'm glad to see it.
Pick on me a lot. Why don't you eat meat? Try some meat. You need the protein. And I didn't know why I was a vegetarian. And this was, especially when I was 15, the kids would kind of attack me and talk all kinds of things, and it would kind of hurt me. And then my mom, shared my mom. I went home. My mom, the kids are picking on me, and why am I a vegetarian? I had no idea really. And then she brought back a book. She was working in a bookstore, and I read the book like overnight basically. And the book explained all reasons why to be vegetarian, and then it took it further. It also talked about how important it is to go vegan if you want to reduce or avoid the suffering of the animals.
Yeah.
And that book really touched me deeply. So literally overnight, I went.
Yeah, so children are like sponges. So good to expose. That's why we're so happy to see people now, because this has changed, man. When we started 11 years ago, I didn't see any of what I'm seeing now, which is awesome.
Vegan, when they talked about how the cows are taking away the calves from their mothers and then either slaughtered or raised to also become cows to give milk and so forth. So all of that really strongly affected me. It was not for health reasons at all. I was 15, I was super healthy, I had no issues. But what I did notice, less mucus. I didn't have my runny nose.
Yeah, he was raised in a vegetarian family, and I think that actually causes mucus issues. But he was way better than average. And nowadays, 15, man, most kids at 15 are chronically ill. I mean, the average lifespan is dropping. So I know he's saying from his experience, of course, everyone's healthy at 15, but we know, I'm just letting you know, if you're in this area where you're raising your kids, you're probably actually homeschooling, you're probably keeping them out of regular society because of these pressures that he's talking about. And they affected me too. But the reality is the average person from earliest ages is chronically ill these days.
Nose went away, and just overall, I started feeling so much better. And then I noticed the connection between eating vegan foods or eliminating all dairy and my health. And I'm like, oh my gosh, so what we eat really affects our health. And then I got more and more into the whole health aspect, and then it was just a no-brainer. To me, it was like also going raw. It just deeply resonated with me when I found out about veganism.
All right, guys, so time is running short. We have the last topic we're going to discuss. We're going to talk about juices. I mean, I sell juicers.
Yeah,
big disclaimer. And we're going to talk, are fruit juices or vegetable juices good? Good or bad, and why? Real short, because we got to kind of get going.
Sure. I'll start off. I eat a lot of, like I said, whole foods are really important to me. I do blend my foods, and
Oh, sorry, I realized I was on mute there, and I want to say to John that we don't advocate the 6 pillars. We do advocate the 6 pillars of healthy vegan food. Juices aren't allowed, but I'm still interested in meeting with you if that doesn't bother you.
I do juice. I do juicing. I love my green vegetable juices. One thing I don't do, and I haven't done for a really long time, is straight up fruit juice. I think when you eliminate or separate the fiber from the juice, I think the sugar in that case, even though it's natural sugar, gets in the body too quickly.
Yes.
And that's not good.
So he's saying that fruit juices have a high glycemic index, yet vegetable juices don't. And I guess there may be some truth to that. Sounds logical to me.
In the years past, I have had like an apple with the greens to kind of help to some degree, but there's still no fiber in there because you're separating it all. So I don't recommend fruit juice by itself. And if you're gonna put it in anything, it should be diluted. If you're gonna drink orange juice, you should dilute it with at least a half a cup of water to replace the sugar rush by the.
She's trying to rebalance it. So if the idea is to rebalance it back to nature, just don't juice it. And I'm kind of curious. John says he has some gut problems. He says he needs to eat potatoes. It may be because he's flooding his gut with fiberless, high-calorie beverages like juices.
Fiber that would naturally be in there. But I think it's just a safe bet not to do straight up fruit sugar, and that's the best way to go. So I'm not a fan of fruit juice.
All right, Kaelash.
Yeah, I'm with Paul. The only one, once in a while, I make watermelon juice, and there's very, very little fiber left, and so.
Okay, there's no reason to do watermelon juice. All you got to do is cut the watermelon in a couple pieces, put it in the blender, and blend it up with all the fiber and drink it. I don't know why you would want to do that. You don't even. It's just like a juice. It's a little thick with the fiber, but you want the fiber, and we just drink it like juice. I don't know why anyone would juice watermelons.
So convenient to take with me as opposed to eating the watermelon. Like sometimes I have to be somewhere, go somewhere, and I have this big watermelon, maybe that's ripe, and instead of taking the pieces, I make the juice and take that and vacuum blended, vacuum sealed.
So vacuum blended, not juiced. That's different. That's a smoothie.
Yeah, that's how. No, actually, I strain it.
Oh, you strain it. All right, then it's juice.
I make all my juices now vacuum blended and then strained through those bags.
Alexa's bags.
Alexa's.
Remember, what is the number one best juicer? The human digestive tract.
Bags, and then I vacuum seal them, and then they go in the fridge or stuff. But that's.
Oh, and you should get about 50 grams of fiber every single day. Every human should get that. Almost nobody does. And if you're drinking a lot of high-calorie juices or any high-calorie foods that have no fiber or very little fiber, there's no way that you'll ever get enough fiber every single day. This is one of the problems that juicing brings into the equation.
That's the exception. Watermelon once in a while, but no other fruit juices.
You do the grind.
Also, there is a caveat or an exception here. If someone is dying and they can't get nutrition, juice may potentially really help them, but that's not normal. That's an interventional method, and we actually don't really advocate any interventional methods, just sustained methods of living every day.
When you're juicing?
Yes, everything. Yes, good point.
And
everything.
the seeds.
The seeds, the rind, everything, the whole thing, yeah.
So that's like adding water to your fruit juice because you're doing
fiber.
The rind.
And the Alexa's bag lets some fiber through, small amounts.
Some. Okay, some is not enough. You need the whole plant fiber, not just some few remains.
Yeah.
So it's not fiberless. All right. So like Kaelash and like Paul, I also disagree with fruit juices. I think drinking straight fruit juices is insane.
There you go.
I mean, if you want to have 200 milliliters a day, that's what the published studies say could be healthy, but nobody stops at 200 milliliters, which are just like a few ounces. Everybody drinks like 32 ounces or 2 quarts and all this stuff, which is absolutely insane. Yes, when in my younger years, I drank lots of fruit juices, but I personally have seen the error of my ways, and also have pulled up many studies showing that fruit juices are not healthy. Fruit juices can cause diabetes, according.
Yeah, and you've seen in the comparative ads or memes that a glass of fruit juice has more sugar than a can of Coca-Cola or something like that.
Some of the published studies, and when you eat the same fruit, it actually negates the effect and will reverse diabetes, basically, in the published study.
Well, actually, just to clarify, diabetes is caused by eating too high of a percentage of calories from fat. Insulin resistance, which is what causes type 2 diabetes, is caused by eating too high of a percentage of calories from fat. So you can't do this. Your body can't regulate its blood sugars when you have this insulin resistance, any level, whether it's considered type 2 diabetes or not. It has trouble. So drinking anything that spikes your blood sugar, such as a fruit juice, will cause problems. But stopping the fruit juice will not reverse it. That's what I want to make sure. And again, see your doctor that is board certified in lifestyle medicine.
As to vegetable juices and green juices, I'm all for them, because when you say juice carrots, for example, you remove the fiber, so now we can get a greater uptake of the beta carotene, which can be important in a published study for breast cancer survivors, for example, because higher beta carotene levels can be.
It makes sense, but the problem is if that person drinking that doesn't get enough fiber during the day, the 50 grams at least, then it's a problem.
Equated with basically higher survivability. I also, like Paul, drink green juices regularly. I used to add, maybe a little bit of apple or something to my green juices. These days I add lime or lemon, which are basically non-sweet fruits. My green juices are consisting of like romaine lettuce, celery, maybe some cucumbers sometimes, and ashitaba and kale. So they're all green based with no extra fruits. I've come to love and
By the way, if you want to know, hey, Mike, you're saying no juices at all. You got to have all the fiber. What do? Smoothies. Smoothies. I mean, my smoothie starts off with a base of homemade almond, not almond, oat milk that I make, okay, with natural flowing spring water. And then I put some dates into it to sweeten it, blend it all up. And then I had tons of spinach, okay, in there. And these guys aren't getting in the frozen or not. I had frozen stuff, but I guess we're not going to hear from them on that. But I'd be interested in your opinion on frozen or not still in the comments.
enjoy that. And yeah, so none of us were pretty much in agreement, with few exceptions, that fruit juices are definitely not the way to go unless there's some extreme case. If you do want to juice fruits, then I would say heavily dilute it. And Paul says dilute it with water. I would say dilute it with vegetables that are going to add significant fiber content. So if you want to juice fruits, I have a video down below, never juice fruits unless you do this, which is basically add at least half of like juiced jicama. Juiced jicama is high in soluble fiber, full of inulin. It's going to feed your microbiome, and it's going to slow down that fruit sugar hit just a little bit. That being said, better than that is just eat your fruits, guys. Fruits are so delicious. You're never going to blend up one of these mangoes that Paul grows, because that is completely insane. You're an asinine idiot if you do that, because they're so delicious. You probably won't even blend them because they're that good. You don't want to waste them.
This is my point. What I was saying about fruit. Everybody would eat way more fruit if you could have high quality, fully ripe fruits. You wouldn't want to juice them either, just like John is saying. I mean, that is what is holding people back, I think, from more of this lifestyle, is high quality, fully ripe fruits. And like I said, I'm going to put my video down below when I make it. There'll be a link down there eventually.
In the blender. And if you do blend them, you should be vacuum blending them so you don't oxidize them, all right? So anyways, that's it for today. I wish I could go on with these amazing guys that we are so full of knowledge.
Okay, well, they are done. And we have a talk on how to achieve health optimization. We cover a lot more than what was here, but this was some interesting stuff. This panel discussion is something like I haven't seen before, and I appreciate all the guys here for doing it. It would be great to see some women involved as well, although this is including me. It's all guys, because usually it's women that care more about their health. So it's interesting to see, like in the raw space, how many guys there are, But anyway, I appreciate it. I learned a lot. I got more things to research, which I'm going to. And please give me your comments, your feedback, everything below. And, definitely, like and subscribe for more similar content. We got all kinds of interesting and unique content all about achieving the state of health optimization. And as you notice, these guys, I know that they're doing the best they can. I know that they're in the same space as us, but they didn't use the terms health span and longevity, health optimization. We use those terms and we defined health optimization because we want you to know what our goal is, what we're trying to do. And if we want to have experiences where we can feel confident that we are not providing or allowing health harming foods at them so that you can thrive, you can regenerate, as was said in it, that's why we do it, if you wonder why we do it. And it's not that we're strict, because I kind of said that in the past. It's just that we're getting as close to nature as possible so that you can have as much fun as possible.
Knowledge that we want to share with you guys so that your lives can be better based on our mistakes.
That's a good point. Man, I have made so many mistakes. So that's another reason why you want to, their video link is down below. You can subscribe to them and to us, learn as much as you can, and keep learning, keep hearing the information. And that's it. I'm between lunch and dinner now, so I am going to figure out what I'm doing for dinner, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.